for it.
Just going for it. Are we in?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So happy Thursday and welcome back to the How to Be Cheeky Visual podcast. I'm April.
I'm G.
And we are here to talk about stuff related to beverage and beverage entrepreneurship. So G, do you want to do a quick little recap about what we talked about last week?
Ooh, it was a lot. Yeah. So last week, we entered into answering questions about the mental switch that has to happen to go from the idea stage into starting your business. And we kind of like ran that onto a lot of other things about kind of getting out of your own way, reparenting yourself as an adult. What else? Minimum viable product. We talked about how to kind of incubate an idea in a practice business scenario before you go and invest your whole life savings and quit your day job. And I think did I do that justice?
You did a great job. I have to say, so I've actually gotten a bunch of feedback from a range of different people. And interestingly, they had said that some of the stuff that was most resonant about last episode was you're talking about the Asian tiger parents, reparenting yourself. And I think really those sort of personal stories about why this is meaningful to us / like what kind of made G into the woman she is today. So yeah, so amazing job. I think for this week, I wanted to kind of kick things off by just saying, for anyone who doesn't already know us, who's not like our friend and family sitting here watching this, why are we talking about entrepreneurship and starting a business versus cocktail mixers, which probably most people know us by? And the reason is really, given everything happening with coronavirus, there is no better time than now to get your shit together and to get started. So, G, we've talked about this a little bit with, again, your bottled cocktails, but I think, wouldn't you agree that we all throw obstacles in our own way and tend to get in habits and patterns where you're like, oh, I like my job, I want to continue doing this thing, or there's nothing like really terribly wrong. And that dream that I had, I'm just going to kind of hold it in the background. Wouldn't you say, even just looking at your own friend group, there's something comparable there?
Absolutely. I in general, I think the number one reason why anybody doesn't do the thing that sets their heart on fire is because we have so much societal pressure and voices in our head and voices in our family that are telling us like, that's not a good idea. That's not going to make money. That's not going to provide for your family. And sometimes there's some real truth in that. Not everybody should like quit their day job and crochet like toaster cozies for a living. You should have maybe a range of different things that you do until you find the thing that is going to sustain you and bring you joy. But I definitely resonate with that. Most of the time when I think about things that keep holding me back, and if I write it down on paper and I ask myself, is it real or is it my perception? 80%, 95% of the time, it's going to be my perception.
Right. And so what I think is interesting about this, and of course I have my own share of this as well, but I think what's interesting about this is in times of tremendous disruption, like right now with coronavirus, there's really like all of those things that we tell ourselves, those stories that we tell ourselves about why we're not worthy or why now is the wrong time, or like, I can't risk it. Like, what if I lose? What if I fail? Those narratives are being disrupted in the same way that, again, our everyday life has been disrupted. And so from my perspective, and again, please comment if you feel the same or differently. But from my perspective, it's like, whoa, this is a moment where we can all recalibrate. We are already being forced to recalibrate. And if you had even a glimmer of an idea or a dream that you haven't yet realized, now is really the perfect time. So for me, it feels like, since we are now at a pretty stable-ish place with Cheeky, it feels like, at least if we can share a little bit of that experience and that knowledge to help other people feel more confident and just getting started, that would make me feel amazing. Whoops, as my mic is falling over. But please, comment while I deal with my issue over here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously people's experience of the pandemic has varied so massively, and we are definitely seeding and commenting from a place of, having succeeded at least somewhat in this moment. And I'm sure to some people it could feel like, wow, this was the time, this year actually totally like ruined my life. And not to like diminish that or to say that like that happened to people because it was like a lack of perspective or a lack of go-gettership. Like that's definitely not what we're saying. But I was having a conversation with somebody recently who was like, oh, so the job market is terrible. If you're looking to go for a job, just know that, most companies total hiring freezes. And I was hearing that and I was like, yes, I hear that there's probably massive hiring freezes. Of course, all hotels, restaurants, anything that's in guest services or travel, global hiring freezes. But industries that have not had any global hiring freezes are tech, universally, product development in any kind of digital field. And those are places where, at least for the younger generations who are graduating high school right now and are probably the most disillusioned about the promise of higher education and the promise of, a typical job market or a typical avenue to a career and a house and a family, et cetera. For people who are Gen Z right now, looking at the world and seeing that, the realm of opportunity is not what it was for us and much not for, their grandparents or great grandparents. I can imagine that there's actually so much more opportunity and possibility as far as inventing your career, inventing your job, and creating a world that's never existed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's both a generational thing as well as, again, everything we've been talking about on the mindset side of things. And for me personally, I think my feeling of anything is possible, like there's such thing as a meritocracy. And as you and I have talked about, like I am a hardcore capitalist. I want I want the good ideas to win and to succeed. And I think that my thought process on that was informed by my growing up. So I grew up in Vermont on a dirt road. I didn't wear shoes a lot of the time, not technically because I didn't have them, but just because you didn't need to, like when you're kind of just hanging out like as kids. And what we saw around there, and I remember my parents talked about it all the time when we were little, is like, there's no economic opportunity. Like there's people who make a little bit of money and come to Vermont and they think they're going to like build this beautiful, peaceful life there. And then the job market was like really horrendous. So I remember being surrounded by that and really wondering, is that actually true? Like, is there literally no way you can make money in any other way than like what's visible and in front of you? And I mean, of course, this is, and again, I know that I look like I'm 21, but this is pre-internet. Geez, like I wasn't born yet.
Not fair.
True.
Don't come for me.
True. But I remember like when the internet happened, and then like all of a sudden it was like, oh, we're not like isolated on this like little remote road in the middle of nowhere where like your jobs that you could choose between, it's like school teacher or like working at McDonald's or like babysitting. It just felt so much more limited back then. And so I think seeing that scarcity around me and around us, I always was looking for how do I develop multiple skills? Also knowing, by the way, and I know that I've seen you whoops, my little bar is showing up there. I've seen you in this as well, where it's like the things that you love, you'll do forever and you'll excel at, but stuff that bores you, it's just like, oh my God, when is it over? I'm going to be a shitty employee if I'm forced to do something that it's like totally boring to me. So anyway, I'm going off on this little tirade, but I don't know. Do you have anything similar in your background that makes you feel that opportunity?
That is a big question. I feel like I would talk for too long if I were to fully answer that. I do want to say that I think the aspect about you that has, been has kind of drawn me to you and to this work when you say I'm a hardcore capitalist. So when I of course, when I went to, when I was in college, anybody who said I'm a hardcore capitalist, I would have been like, burn you at the stake. You are the devil. And, I've grown up a lot and changed a lot. And we've also talked about this a lot. A lot of my, colleagues, whoever in, in university, especially, who were, the staunchest anti-capitalists, often came from the wealthiest families, and probably didn't have to work for a living. Whereas you and I have been working since we were children. I know that my first job, I was 7 years old and I was walking dogs for $2.50 an hour.
Yeah.
And I was doing that all day, every day for my summers.
Yeah.
So, it varies how any of us probably frame it, but I am definitely there with you with I will do my best to believe in the meritocracy, and I will do my best to get behind the ideas that I, want to win, and believing that the good ideas win, and believing in that, there is a lot of merit and good and community-based empowerment that can come about starting a business, doing it well, and bringing myself and the people I love and care about with me to whatever, financial, professional, spiritual, personal success that could lead to.
Yeah. I just want to say something. And again, you and I have talked about this. I'm not going to say ad nauseum, but a lot outside of the pod.
Yeah.
But I want to just be clear that, like, I understand that and when we say like capitalism or meritocracy, I understand that there are certain people who start off on third base, on second base, like that have a head start on other groups. And so I do not mean to say that, the playing field is level for everybody.
Right.
I don't mean that. What I do mean is, again, I love the notion of the good ideas and the hard work pays off. And that is, I think, to my core, what I believe. And I mean, I don't know. It's been just like, I think, essential to my career evolution and the decisions I've made about always accumulating skills. And currently, as you know, what we're doing is we're always accumulating skills to build Cheeky. And the people, and I know this is later in the conversation for today, but the people that I want to have around us are people who are lifelong learners, who are curious, who have humility, but are interested in learning and sharing those learnings with other people and really building off of each other. So to me, that's like not only what I've done for my entire career, but also I really believe that the only way out of like a lower middle class livelihood or lifestyle is through ownership. So I believe that everybody has to be, if you want to own shit, if you want to make whatever, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars or however you like, whatever financial goal you set for yourself. I don't personally see a clear path to doing that outside of like the corporate structure where you like go to Wall Street and you work for a hedge fund and you go. So for me, bringing it kind of back to, I guess, how, like, why we're talking about this, I see this community of peers that we have particularly in food and beverage, but this pertains to, I would say, the vast majority of the Americas. Well, I'm talking about the US in particular, but like, people that we know, where people are kind of going through the rat race. And I really think you have to plant a stake or a flag in the ground and say, I'm going to make something that I own and I can control if you really want to like accelerate and reach that sort of escape velocity. So that's why I think that this topic is very relevant. Like people like us, again, we're getting ourselves out of that rat race that so many people we know are in, which is like you go to the bar and you make tips and you take those tips home and you may or may not save for taxes and you don't know what you're declaring and you don't have health insurance. And so I'm just trying to say, all right, we've unlocked a little bit of the secret of like how you translate that skill into something that could grow, that is growing, that could grow really big. And if we're in the position of being able to help even us in a minuscule way, I'd love to be able to do that. So that's, I think, coming full circle about like why the hell we're talking about this instead of
oh, I know. Like we have real things to talk about. Like
we got real shit to talk about.
This is real shit to talk about. But yeah. We did have
yeah.
This was not on the bill.
This was not on the bill. No, this is part of the bill. This is part of the
Yeah.
bill. So, but anyway, so transitioning into like what we actually decided we were going to talk about today. So one of the listener questions we've been trying to get to for like 3 weeks was a question of like, how do you hire a logistics person into the business? And really, when is the right time to do so? So I thought, and G, tell me if you feel differently, but I thought that maybe we can just talk about kind of a little bit, just super quick recap of like where we started out and where we are, like 15 seconds.
Yeah,
maybe
you should do that. And then I have a follow-up question from like people who are probably from, share my perspective of like, I'm going to need you to define what a logistics person is. Because I think I can imagine what that is, but in every context, I'm going to need that.
Yeah.
Again, so
they do logistics.
Yeah, what? That's not me. I'm not that type of person.
Yeah. Okay. So just to start off, so anyone who's watched this before, we were another company, Swig and Swallow, for the past 4 years. It was always really small. We got some traction, but nothing really to write home about. But quite frankly, it was amazing training grounds for what became Cheeky. I launched it. I mean, I'm going to say because G was in another country, basically locked out during the beginning of COVID. So I basically launched it by myself. G was sort of in and out for probably a couple of months or a few months at the beginning. But I launched
on the coast of the Aegean Sea.
I know, drinking that Retsina in Greece.
I was there with you in spirit.
What's that?
I was there with you in spirit.
I know. But anyway, so I launched the business by myself in April of 2020. And then grew from just me to, right now we have like 7 consistent. So 1, 2, 3, I think 4 full-time, 3 part-time, but every week. And then another 2 that are like sort of ad hoc. So 7 to 9 people working with the business as far as we can slice it. Right now we have the mixers business. We sell direct to consumer from our website. We sell wholesale, and we sell bulk. So meaning we drop ship cocktail kits to people's homes as well. We're doing a lot of corporate business there. And then we have Cheeky Studio, which again, I'm in Cheeky Studio right now. And this is the content side. And this just evolved. And obviously we know a lot of our friends who are in the bar world doing this as well. But this evolved because we were creating our own content. We were creating so much of it that we had a couple of folks approach us and ask us to do content for them. And so we've now really built out the side of the business as well. So that's just the quick recap of how much we've grown. And for the record, for anyone who's not started their own business before, that's a pretty quick growth rate. I would say that I actually don't know the statistics, but I would say that there's a tremendous number of like solopreneurs who it's just them working for years. And part of that is like your own decision of, do I want to manage people or not? But we grew by necessity, meaning that we just needed more hands and more intellectual capital to create a legitimate business, which I hope that we are on our en route to being. So that's a recap.
Right. So who was the first logistics person?
So the first, so as you know, you were helping from a distance. And then you actually came back from Amsterdam and worked with us for, was it 3 weeks or was it a month?
It was like a month and a half.
Oh, I'm like, were you even here? Sorry.
Fine.
I'm sorry. This entire year. Yeah. This entire year feels like a really weird pace. Okay. So initially, again, it was literally me running back and forth, doing the website, doing the branding, doing the everything. Then I think my friend Lee and Jerry started working with us. So I started outsourcing certain like food safety things or like paid advertising. Jerry and I had worked together on paid advertising via Facebook for Swig and Swallow. So I started outsourcing some of that activity. And then the first full-time person was actually Jackie, who is our marketing manager. And she does a lot of other things, client services. She does sales. She's very good with organization and thinking through structure and workflow. So she actually found me through the chat bot. Like she had just chatted us saying, hey, this is what I do. I was wondering if you were hiring. And then based on our, Yeah, and based on our interactions, just like back and forth, I was like, okay, she's very persistent where other people wouldn't be. She went above and beyond, being very professional with her resume and cover letter, and took it very seriously. And I wanted somebody who had those characteristics. And so I basically was like, listen, this might not all be marketing, and I don't know, like, this is a giant risk that I'm taking in bringing you on board full time, because we'd never had a full time person. Well, since Cheeky started, we hadn't had a full-time person. So she was the first person. Andrea, who is our first logistics person, I think I hired her like a month or a month and a half later. And I think, to answer the listener question, I really think the only person that can make the decision about how you find that logistics person, what is the right fit, that is you as the owner. And you really have to use your gut and your understanding of what's happening with the business.
But did you post a job posting?
Yes. Yes. So, yep. Yeah. So I actually only, so I think I only posted a good food job. So let me just back up a step. What I was looking for was somebody who could do, like, help me with like the physical manufacturing of the products, could help me with building a legitimate inventory system, potentially could help me with some finance, but basically was like, had the vision or had the ability to grow into more officey roles or a single role, but also had kitchen experience and did not feel like that was beneath them, like that they would be able to help me out. Because again, I'm very hands-on. It's like, I mop floors, I sweep floors, I bring the garbage out, I do our financial stuff, I do tax stuff. Like,
right,
we all wear a bunch of hats. Right. And so I only posted, I believe, to good food jobs, because again, I know that there's people obviously with restaurant experience that come through there. It tends to be more specific than like a Craigslist or an Indeed.com or something like that. And again, it was very important to me knowing what personalities show up in which capacities in food, like in hospitality. So front of the house and back of the house. I knew I wanted somebody with kitchen experience, right, and somebody who I could give direction to, and they would understand the seriousness of food safety, and they would understand, like, giving up on the job before it's done is bullshit. And like if you're a line cook and you're like, oh, my job is done because it's 7, versus like, did I cook all the food that needs to go out tonight? They'd fire your ass, So yeah, I wanted to make sure that back. Yeah. So that interestingly has been a theme with everybody we've hired. Every single person we have hired has restaurant experience. And that common language has been absolutely essential to us running a tight ship.
Let's say it again. Restaurant people, they get it done. They get it done. They stay late. They don't complain. They are hard fucking workers.
Some of them might complain a lot.
Actually, yeah, you're right. They complain a shit ton. Never mind.
No, but especially. No, but for reals though, I think for anybody who is in, again, the bar, restaurant, hospitality industry and is concerned, being like, I can't find a job outside of the industry, I only have these skills, you would be totally shocked at how far this goes. The thoughtfulness. So one of the things that Andrea had said, like, I think on her like first day, is my habit is when I'm welcoming a new employee into the space, it's like, yes, I'll ask them to help me with certain things, but it's like, I'm going to be like, oh, you don't have to go up on that ladder, like, or you don't have to do the trash, or you don't have to sweep, because I want to show that I'm going to be working like every bit as hard, if not a lot harder than everybody else here. And one of the things she had said to me, and again, she has a finance, inventory, front of the house and back of the house background. At Michelin starred restaurants and very well respected restaurant groups. So anyway, I think it was our second day or first day. And I had said, she was like, oh, would you like me to mop the floor? And I'm like, no, I got it. Don't worry. And she's like, but that's why I'm here. Knowing full well that, well that I had already just said no, but that hospitality act of just being like, no, please. Like, I know this needs to get done and I want to take this off of your plate. I was like, like a breath of fresh air, Yeah.
Not only that, but Andrea is amazing on so many levels. And when I first met her, one of my first things was, this is somebody who wrote proficient in Excel on their resume and actually meant it.
Didn't lie on that resume.
And I realized, it was like the first time I realized, I remember like looking over her shoulder when she was like measuring pH levels, which is like this very weird medical looking tubey mechanism that you got to dip in different things of liquid. And then she's like entering things on a spreadsheet, and then she's like tidying anything up, and everywhere she passes, like everything is cleaner than it was.
Yeah.
And I'm just like watching her, I was just like, oh my gosh. And I just, for the first time, I was like, I feel guilty for having lied about Microsoft Excel on every resume.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
know?
but so that brings us back to the initial question, right? Is
Yeah.
how do you find and hire that person? I think the first thing is, like, your job as a business is to stay in business. That's the primary job. I like to say my primary job is not letting us go out of business. So I think that's the thing. One is like, do I need help right now? Like, and can I afford it?
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how much, you've got to evaluate, is this person or is outsourcing this thing going to free up some of my time that will enable me to work on higher priority or more impactful work? So for me, I actually was really resistant when I first hired Andrea. She was part-time. I think she was part-time for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then every night I was at the facility. And by the way, sorry, rewind. She was part-time because I was like, I'm really scared about taking on another person full-time. And she was like, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to do it. And after 2 or 3 weeks, I was still like at the facility producing and labeling and doing everything probably till like 2 a.m., like 6, maybe 7 nights a week. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And so in that situation, and again, I've had this for probably everybody we've hired on or increased their hours, is I've had that moment of like, should I be doing this work, or is it just stupid for me to be doing this work? Like, if we really want to accelerate the business, is it helpful or is it harmful for me to work on that thing? Like, would it serve us better as a company, as a group, as a team, in terms of morale, to have somebody else doing that work or not? So that's, I think, the second sort of element of it is, like, again, is your time better spent? And is this going to serve the business in these other ways? I think to the question of like where you post for that, it really depends on your business. As I mentioned, if you're an hour type of business, with my particular need, I've put ads on Good Food Jobs and had really excellent candidates on a number of occasions. But I think if you're more spirits industry, you might want to go to, I think it's like BevSource, or there's like some very specific like beverage, alcohol, and CPG websites. Again, the types of folks I was looking at really had to come from more of a food background and potentially bar background, rather than like a corporate background or like a sales background. And so for me, it was very evident where I needed to go. But that's an important criterion as well. I'm going to let you get into word and edgewise because I've been yakking forever.
Well, I was just saying that I think that at some point it might be, if you had any kind of like worksheet that was like how you before hiring got an estimate of whether or not you could afford to pay someone for the year going forward, like how I imagine for a business owner that is super valuable, just being able to like visualize those numbers.
Yes. So the reason I kind of didn't go there first is because my assumption is that the majority of people who might be listening to this podcast, reviewing this podcast, and getting benefit from it probably don't have like a full year of financial projections, which is, working back from that is how you understand like what your budget is, right? It's like, it's taking the total money available and then sort of backing into it, being like, what can I afford this month, next month, blah, blah. And again, we're dealing with this right now ourselves as well, which is we're comparing projections versus actual. And we've just gone through, month one, obviously, of 2021, because we just completed January. And even though we now have been in business as Cheeky for almost a full year, like not even having a full calendar year of sales, and then given again how much of our press, for example, and exposure brand awareness was generated just from October, November, and December of this past year, it's really difficult to understand what sales are going to be coming in in order to determine your budget from that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was just something that was on my mind.
No. Listen,
Yeah,
it's super important. And again, I was doing back of the napkin math for the past 4 years. Like this is only recently have we really started tightening this up. So, I mean, I definitely think that if you're just like, okay, cool, the total amount of money I can invest in this, if there's zero sales, let's just say, and I'm just going to choose like a couple of totally random numbers, but let's just say you're like, okay, I only have $1,000 to spend over the next 12 months. Or if it's like, I only have $100,000 to spend over the next 12 months. I think it's evident for $1,000 spread out over 12 months, you're not going to be able to hire somebody regularly. So I think that's the first thing, is just even with that quick computation, you can get a sense of like, what am I able to do? Right. But again, on the flip side of that, there's a question of, okay, so let's just say you only can spend $1,000 on this for the next 12 months, but you have a job. What that says to me immediately is like, okay, I can keep my job. This is my sort of play side hustle money, and I'll work on this in my spare time. So like my expenses and my rent, like all that stuff is taken care of, but I will still be able to make progress on my dream, even if it's in a sort of small way. And quite frankly, there's a lot of, and we talked last week about minimum viable product. There's a lot of tiny little tests that you can do to understand if there's demand without spending any money at all. So yeah, does that help? Does that answer?
Yeah. And I guess to bring that back to, I guess, thinking about, finding the right people beyond the first logistics person, and now, beyond, I guess, the back of the napkin math, what are the kind of next most important, I guess, positions or traits that needed to be filled for Cheeky?
Yeah.
Or was it that order even?
Yeah. Well, so I actually wrote down my thoughts on this a number of occasions, and this would be theoretically, I guess, in like a strategic, this should live in like a strategic brand deck somewhere. But I mean, I think like culture and attitude fit, absolutely number one.
And that goes across the board, right?
That goes across the board. And you and I have talked about this before, and I'd actually like to kind of throw the question back for you, because I think you know like the essence of Cheeky so well. But the question that I have in any of these hiring situations is, am I going to like working with this person? And again, I've asked you to, to help, like if you were to recruit somebody for us, like what would that look like? Or, and I think you feel as protective about it as I do, right?
Yeah, I do. Definitely.
Because it's like,
I'm glad that's not my main job. Hiring and like HRs, I'm really glad that that's not most of what I do, because I do think that, I think I'm somebody who maybe I'm too emotional around it, because I am protective, where I'm like, this is maybe somebody who's more analytical and more.
I disagree.
Like, really?
I disagree, because I think it's the like, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Like you, I think the emotional thing, it goes the other way too, right? It's not just the analytics of like, is this person competent and capable, and will they do the job? It's like, do I fucking like this person or not? Like, do I think that like, if I give them hard or harsh feedback, do I think they're going to lash out at me? Or do I think they're going to be like, I'm so sorry, or there was a miscommunication, or, those are really important elements to like creating sustainable and, absolutely long-term relationships. So I think that you're just inexperienced at it. I think that with some experience, I think you'd be excellent at it, to be honest.
Well, I definitely can speak to, I mean, maybe not as somebody who's like a hiring manager, but the qualities that now I think largely because of our relationship and my experience with Swig and with Cheeky, I have, and just like life, have, really, I think if you asked me 3 years ago what kind of employment atmosphere I would live with, and now, it's just like night and day. Like it's night and day. So being able to, I think for me, one of the most important traits of like knowing if a work environment is right for me, or if I think somebody else is going to be successful in a work environment, is, yes, like what you said, being able to receive feedback and feel safe in receiving and giving feedback, feeling like my intelligence is respected, my position is respected. This is coming from a place of like, this just needs to happen, or this is better for everybody. And this isn't like a personal attack on anyone. And it doesn't make anybody look better or worse to be on the receiving or giving end of feedback. And I think it's also more than that. I think it's also being able to say, I want to do something else. Like, this is kind of working for me, but I also think that I might be better if I did it this way. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like
having authorship.
Yeah. I guess so. And kind of being able to be, and I know that I've done this a lot in Cheeky, and you've also posed the question to me multiple times. You were like, do you want to be a kitchen manager? Are you really attracted to HACCP? Do you want, like you've literally asked me to try every job that there is.
HACCP, by the way, hold on. HACCP is not a person. HACCP is
so attracted to HACCP. Ooh.
Just to clarify again, because you're not the HR department, HACCP is not an individual. HACCP is hazard analysis critical control points, is a food safety thing.
Yes. Right. But like you've asked me like, is there something you're not doing that you would like to try? And I think that I've tried all the possible things. And when something was more exciting to me, you noticed always. Yeah. And you were like, I can tell that this is something that is exciting to you. Would you like to do more of this? Yeah. And I think that is just, in any work environment, that is something that is just like, oh, it's just cherished, Just cherished. Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, I know that it looks like I'm crying. I know that I did tear up in our first episode, but I'm like, I'm gonna cry every episode.
Don't cry.
No, this is from like the sun and whatever. But no, I think that ties back to like the way we open the conversation today, which is I fundamentally believe, again, if people are just fucking psyched about something, you will put your heart and soul into it, and it's going to be better for everybody. Yeah. So that's why, even I think coming further into some of the other folks that work with us, and I've talked about different individuals on different episodes, but I think with Casey, this is actually an interesting one. She was our most recent full-time hire. And she's helping with manufacturing and production and food safety and other logistics. And she has like a logistics background, but she was working in restaurants or in bars. And it's interesting because I was excited that she has a logistics background. She's shipped, thousands and thousands of pallets of freight around the world. So that was awesome because I'm like, we gonna be in that business. So we like gotta have somebody who's had some experience. But also she's been really interested in the food safety aspect of it. And I would never have forced her into that. Just being like, I need to make this same person do both things. Because again, like the attention to detail required to do them well is at a very high level. And if you're going to be pushing that sort of like boulder uphill, you got big problems. So in that case, it was just like almost pure luck that she was like, and I love this other thing. And I'm like, yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Awesome. So anyway.
You got to put it out there. I'm going to get a little hokey for a second. You got to ask the universe for what you need. The universe is going to hear you if you ask with pure intent, energy, it's going to happen. Totes. It will find you.
Totes. So listen, I know that we are at the end of our session here. I think, all of this goes back to basically the theme that we've talked about every single week, which is really like, trust your gut, be you, don't be afraid. What else do you want to add?
I mean, and especially when it comes to like interacting with other people in your business journey or in your entrepreneurial or creative journey, trusting your gut and then also building trust with the people around you and building the relationships with people around you where you can, you know, fill in for each other where, you know, if something's not your interest, finding somebody where that is their interest and then kind of fitting together like a puzzle. Or like an amorphous organism of super awesome humanness.
We're getting real weird here.
Just cut me off.
Yeah, no, and I'm like, and that's the end scene. But no, that's I think it's about how you relate to other people. I don't know. I guess my final sort of thought is, I know there's a lot of people who are just like, I don't go to work to make friends. It's like, I don't have to be friends with the people I work with. And I think that's just, it's sad. It's just a sad attitude. And I understand it comes from a place of negative experience and hurt. Yeah. But we all, and again, this is just back to the topic we started off with, we all have the ability to somewhat dictate what happens to us and how we perceive that. And I think part of that is actively, again, being discerning about the people you spend time with, whether at home or at work, really following your true passion, and working hard at it. And I mean, for me anyway, it took me tasting, 20 different jobs in a range of industries over years to find.
I did not know what you were going to say after tasting. I'm sorry.
Tasting some mushrooms, some psychedelic. No, but it took a lot of experimentation to understand the things that I'm good at, the things that I enjoy doing, the things that fuel me and like stoke curiosity within me. And I think that even if all you've done for the past year is lay on your couch and watch Netflix or kind of like stress about your future, I think we can all make incremental progress towards better understanding ourselves and better understanding how we want to be spending our time. And that's, from my perspective, it's like, if you can at some point in that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, find people that uplift you and make you feel good and you trust and you can rely on, and vice versa. To me, that's like the max you can get there. So
that's being rich, you know?
Tis. I'm gonna get off of my little soapbox, but yes.
No, that's great. Mic drop. That's what being rich is about.
The irony of this is like my whole mic setup, like completely. Yeah, it came apart, so I could actually just easily drop the mic here.
Don't drop the mic.
Okay, we're going to stop yakking at you. We're a full 12 minutes and 17 seconds over time. But thank you all for spending your time with us. We hope this wasn't total garbage. We hope some of this was helpful or illuminating or interesting or just a good way to pass the time. And please, as always, let us know if you want us to tackle any specific topics, if you've got questions, comments, concerns, or any feedback. We love, love, love feedback. So good, bad, or other, we want to hear it. That's all I got.
Yeah. Awesome. See you next Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.